today I thought it could be fun to talk about the books that I ended up keeping after selling most of my books, which was something well over 200. These are not them, these are my partner's shelves. I just thought it was a nice looking background. I can maybe show a picture if I can find one. I'll put it on the screen of what my bookshelf used to look like and how many books I used to have. The stack is totally out of order, so the first thing that's on top was this battered copy of Chamber of Secrets that has this little Lightning McQueen sticker on it, courtesy of my little sister. I have the whole series. The copies, not the copies I read them out of, even though they look like they would be because they are so old and beat up. These copies I was given as a, I want to say 15th birthday present, and I read the series. I'm just like showing these and not really saying anything, but I read the series in library books when I was 8 years old. The OG, of course. Also very battered, taped at this bottom corner. And then Goblet of Fire and this extremely battered Prisoner of Azkaban. I've reread the series at least 3 times and rewatched the movies all the time. Honestly, I debated whether I was going to keep these books a lot because part of the reasoning that went into getting rid of most of my books was that I could get most of them at the library if I ever wanted to reread. And obviously these are so easily accessible at the library. I just haven't been able to part with these because I do have a few, I think it's mainly in Order of the Phoenix and the Deathly Hallows. I have a few little annotations in there, and I think my sister had annotated it just a little bit when she was reading some of these books, and it's hard for me to part with them, especially because, mentioned in my last video, I can get kind of paranoid about germs sometimes, and popular children's books like these they can just get really grimy at the library. So I like having my own personal set, and I know I'm going to reread this again, so I don't mind keeping them. And because these are so old, they're just like really good quality like covers and stuff. They're not going to fall apart anytime soon because they are so well made, and I've seen the current paperbacks that are being sold in stores and they feel terrible. So I figured I would keep them. Maybe I'll change my mind, but I feel like if I do get rid of them, it will be sad. Honestly, a little bit of a dream of mine is to have like 0 books and just exclusively read from the library, or buying books and then like immediately selling or donating them afterwards, because having a lot of books, it doesn't affect me that much for his books because I know they're not mine, so they don't like bother me so much. But for me, having a lot of books that are mine in my vicinity just stresses me out sometimes. Just having a lot of anything. I'm like that with clothes, dishes, books, trinkets, anything. I am kind of like a unwilling minimalist. I don't know. Okay, sticking with books from my childhood. Gregor the Overlander. This is, I think, my oldest book. No, there's one that's older, and it wasn't mine. It's a hand-me-down book. So this book I read for a library book club called Battle of the Books that I was in from ages 11 to 13 maybe. We would get like 8 books over the summer, and we would read them and then go to this big convention that was like for a bunch of different libraries. Like 50 libraries would come, and you would have your team and like make costumes and your team name, and then you would compete in trivia about all of the books. And it was like a huge deal to me. Gregor the Overlander was my favorite book that was given to us from that book club, and I was just obsessed with it. I don't know why I never picked up any of the other ones because they were all published by the time that I acquired this one, but I don't know, I just didn't. And I'm so glad I kept this all these years because I reread it because it's by, you might have noticed, Suzanne Collins, who wrote The Hunger Games, which I love. I've always loved the movies, but I only read the books last year. I was just like, for some reason, reminiscing about reading this as a kid. It's one of those books that have just stuck with me for a very long time because it's so unique, such an interesting plot. It follows a boy named Gregor who is from New York City, and his little sister Boots. Boots falls down a laundry vent one day, and Gregor goes after her, and when he finds where that laundry vent leads, it is this elaborate, humongous community, this underground city of like talking ginormous animals. So there's huge talking bats, rats, ants, roaches, spiders, lots of creepy crawlers that are associated with New York City and being pretty gross. Some of them are villains and some of them are friends, and the whole underground system of people and their way of life is totally different than our way of life, and there's so many different landscapes that they travel throughout the series. There's 5 books. The covers of those books are also just awesome. I love this cover. I think it's so cool. They're called the Underland Chronicles, the whole series. I like the Underland Chronicles more than I like the Hunger Games. And I love the Hunger Games. But this one is just like, it captured my heart as an 11-year-old, and now rereading it last year when I was 22, I still was obsessed. And I think these characters are so complex. The world is so cool. I've been reading some fantasy books that it feels like it has awesome world building, but I don't care about the characters at all. This has everything. I mean, it's Suzanne Collins. I feel like if you've read one of her books, you kind of know she's just a master. Like, I've yet to read a Suzanne Collins book that I didn't like or that I didn't become obsessed with. Like, every single book by her. I've read all of her books. At the end of every book by her, I'm like, this is my new favorite Suzanne Collins book. Also, very excited that she's releasing another book next year. That's going to be Hamish's Hunger Games. So, love her, love Gregor. It's such a special book to have from when I was a kid, and I'm glad I never got rid of this one. Here is To Kill a Mockingbird in this little mass market paperback edition. I believe this was my mother's, but I'm not sure. It could have been my brother's. I don't even know how I acquired this. I think it was just because the only bookshelf that had books in it was in my room, because nobody else in my family is like a really big reader. So it probably just got lumped in there at some point and has just traveled with me over the years. So I had read this book in high school and was about it, but that's how I felt about all books that I read in high school. I never really fully immersed myself. I wasn't a big reader at that point in my life. I was a huge reader in middle school, but then with assigned readings in high school, I just hated it. So I fell back in love with reading over COVID. And did I read this last year? Yeah, I read this one last year too. So I reread it last year and loved it. I know some people see this as a controversial book now because of like white savior complex themes, but I'm sorry. I found it so charming, and I loved the main character, whose name escapes me, Scout, and her brother Jeremy Jr., Jem, and Dill. I just loved the feeling that I got while reading this book. I felt like I was transported back into my own childhood. It just captured the feeling of being young and running around with your friends so well. And then it handled these much heavier topics later in the book. But really it was the vibes of this book that made me love it so much, and it like really broke my heart. I think this edition is really cool. Like I said, this is so old that it just feels like it's never gonna fall apart. They just don't make them like this anymore, you know? It's got that kind of like shiny cover that will not rip on you unless you like really force it. I hate this. It kind of looks like fungus or like a wound to me. So I hate this part of the cover design. Considered covering it up because it makes me cringe, you know? It's kind of like those people who have like tyrophobia, I think, that are like scared of holes. Maybe that's this manifesting like a small instance of it, but I really hate that part of the cover. Other than that, I think it's beautiful. I like the colors a lot. I like the bird, you know? I just like the way it feels. And it was fun reading out of a mass market paperback. It kind of sparked my enjoyment of having mass market paperbacks around. I'll read you a few of the quotes I have tabbed. Oh, this is probably my favorite one. The fact that I had a permanent fiance was little compensation for his absence. I had never thought about it, but summer was Dill by the fishpool smoking string. Dill's eyes, alive with complicated plans to make Boo Radley emerge. Summer was the swiftness with which Dill would reach up and kiss me when Jem wasn't looking. The longings we sometimes felt each other feel. With him, life was routine. Without him, life was unbearable. I stayed miserable for 2 days. I just feel like that captures like love and crushes in your childhood, and I just loved the writing in this. I loved the characters. I really liked Atticus. I guess we'll stick with books from when I was younger. This one I wasn't super young when I acquired. I think I was in high school. Yes, I was a senior, maybe not. I might have been a senior in high school when I got this, but maybe I got this a little bit younger. I had read a children's abridged version of many classics as a child because they had this one brand. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. If I can, I'll put it on the screen. They had this one brand of books that was always in the Target dollar section. There was a Target super close to my house, and the dollar section had all these like children's books, and I loved reading so much as a kid. So those were some books that I could get my grubby little fingers on really easily because they were only $1, and my mom would always say yes. So I read like a children's edition of like Frankenstein, Oliver Twist, Dr. Jekyll, and Mr. Hyde. I can't remember anything else. Maybe it was just those three. Frankenstein, I remember really loving as a kid. And so then I think I bought this not long after that and was way in over my head to like actually try and do the source material, because I was probably 7 years old when I was buying those like children's classics abridged versions, you know? So this was a big step up. But then I was assigned to read this in high school. And then, like how all the other high school books went, I never finished it. I didn't mean to keep this book. I just found it in my dad's house when he moved. It somehow got put into some box somewhere and had been sitting there for years. And so I found it like a month ago. And I have some annotations, mainly in the introduction. Like, I read the whole introduction and like thoroughly highlighted and annotated all of that. But then when you actually get into the book, I think I stop around the 100-page mark. Spent too much time in the introduction, not enough time in the actual material. Another book I got in high school, Romeo and Juliet. I didn't keep this intentionally. I tried to sell this and nobody wanted it. And I just haven't really done anything to get rid of it. It's really a beautiful edition. These inner illustrations are very cool. I like the color a lot. I like these Shakespeare editions. I do think I ended up reading all of Romeo and Juliet in high school. I think I was a freshman, maybe. I don't particularly love Shakespeare, but I haven't read any of his work as an adult, and I wonder if that will change now, because there's so much literature that I tried to read as a teenager that I just wasn't ready for. I was exposed to at the wrong time, maybe too early, maybe just in the wrong context, so it put me off from classics for a very long time. I'd be curious to go back to this. Not super attached to keeping this one, it's just kind of worked out that way because nobody has bought it, and I just haven't gotten around to donating it. Then I have this KJV Bible. I remember buying this Bible for myself, which felt like a very special moment because I didn't buy a lot of new books from Barnes & Noble because they're expensive, and so most of my life, most of my books have come from the library or have been gifts. Like the Gregor the Overlander book, this was free from my library. They gave it to us. You know, this was a hand-me-down. The Harry Potters were a gift. I think I had to buy this because of school, you know. But I remember buying this with my own money and it just felt really cool. So I don't really read this super frequently, but it does just feel special, and it's a really nice feeling book. It's like this, I don't know if this is real leather or fake leather. It's probably fake, but it just feels really good. And if I do want to read anything in the Bible, I would like to use this edition. So I'm sure I'll read something out of it again at some point. Now this book, I will not lie, I kept because it is considered rare now. And this is the Once Upon a Broken Heart special exclusive edition. This came out when the book was first published at Barnes & Noble, and I bought it for the regular book price, $12.99. After these were no longer printed and the black editions came out, these became super valuable. And buying them online, like I think you can buy these for like $100 or something, so I've just kind of been holding on to it, and it is just gorgeous. I love the pastel covers of these books. The content, it was fun. I had a fun time. Also, God, I forgot to show you. Oh my God, I just ripped it. Okay, it's fine. It's already kind of beat up, but the end papers are just gorgeous, beautiful. I lent this to a friend and she had wet hair, I think, and this like her hair dripped on it, so it kind of got a little messed up here, but I don't care. I love how these look far more than I love the story. I did read the whole trilogy, Once Upon a Broken Heart, The Ballad of Never After, and A Curse for True Love. I liked the first two a lot more than I liked the last one. I really didn't like the last one much at all. But this is fun, and part of why I keep this around is to reference for pacing inspiration. I'm writing my own novel right now, and it's in the YA romantasy genre, and I remember when I was reading this book, the chapters were really great lengths. I always wanted to keep reading. I always felt comfortable just doing one more chapter because I knew it would be short and snappy, and I was never bored. I was always super engaged, which I've learned is so important as an author. It's not writing the next War and Peace or super analytical work sometimes. It's how do I keep my reader engaged? And she kept me super engaged throughout the story, even though I look back at it now and a lot of the things in the story infuriated me. But even that is sometimes a useful skill to have. Infuriating your reader can sometimes make it more fun. This one is Things to Look Forward to, 52 Large and Small Joys for Today and Every Day by Sophie Blackall. This was a birthday present, I want to say, for when I turned 20 from one of my roommates, Chris. This one just has such sweet illustrations and sweet messages, baking something for someone. Just like little simple things that they're just these one-page reminders and then a beautiful illustration by the author. When I was getting rid of books, this kind of felt like something that would be obvious to just like let go of because it's like a picture book. It's not really a novel, and I don't really read books in this format very much, but I stopped and I like flipped through it because I hadn't flipped through it for a while. Sorry for the change in angle, phone died. As I was saying, and read a few and realized that I actually really like this book and I think it's gorgeous, and it makes me think of Chris, and I don't really get to see him that often, so I'll read you this one, New Glasses. When my child got their first pair of glasses at the age of 9, they didn't realize most people were able to see individual leaves on trees. They thought everyone saw them as fuzzy shapes. As my eyesight deteriorates in middle age, I look forward to new glasses that actually stay on my face and allow me to see things more clearly. Sometimes the world looks better fuzzy, but it's nice to have the option and to be able to thread a needle. I love getting new glasses. These are actually kind of new, month-old glasses, so this will be staying. Persuasion. This was not included in the books that I was considering when I was getting rid of things because I only actually bought this about 2 months ago, and I finished it yesterday. No, 2 days ago. And I watched the new Netflix adaptation with Dakota Johnson. I'm considering watching some of the even older ones because there's a 2007, a 1991, and a 1971, I think. There's 3 different other ones that I can watch if I would like to, but I really loved this book and it will stay for now. I might just pass it along, but for right now, I'm enjoying having it and seeing it in my tiny collection, so it'll stay. The next few books were an anniversary present or Christmas present, one of the two from my partner, and they are the iconic, fully illustrated hardcover Harry Potter books, only the first 3. I believe there are 5 currently out. Yes, I think there's 5. Because I checked out the 4th and 5th books from my local library when I was reading those during my reread this year. I mentioned these books probably like a year before he got them for me. We would go book shopping all the time, and every time I saw them, I always ogled over them. I've always wanted these books just to see all the cool illustrations, and they've been out for several years, and I just like have never wanted to spend like, what is it, like $40 a piece on them. And I think he got them for a good deal and on Amazon, like during a sale or something. And he surprised me. I think it was a Christmas present. So now I have these. I did consider selling them because I am quite ruthless, even when things are gifts. I know several of the books I've shown you so far are gifts. I don't keep all of the books that I receive as gifts. So these were on the chopping block because they all are at our local libraries, but kind of like the other Harry Potter books, they're all kind of like beat up and in not awesome condition. So I liked having my own and be able to look at like the pristine pictures, and they are just like a cool piece to have. It was really fun to be able to read out of these editions. I didn't read totally from them because I don't always love reading illustrated books. I think I more appreciate reading a book or like reading a few chapters and then going through the illustrated version and flipping through them to like see what I missed while reading from a regular paperback. And then I just alternate, but it's hard for me to read from illustrated books. It's just distracting. I don't know. It distracts me. The last book, this one's kind of a cheat that I have, is my own. These are some of the photos from my Pinterest board that I put together when I was writing my own novel's first draft. I printed out my first draft, I think on my birthday. Yeah, this was my birthday present to myself. I went to the library and I printed out my entire manuscript and bought a binder and printed out this page in color ink and just like hole punched everything in the library and put it together in here so that I could start editing. So that was in June, that was in the summer. So those are all of the books that I ended up keeping. So thanks for watching the video this far. Leave a comment or like or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.